The words were written in shaky, childlike penmanship, innocent, hopeful, and powerful enough to stop a billionaire's world in its tracks. Adam Vance had built an empire on logic, discipline, and the belief that emotions were obstacles. Yet on a snowy December night, in the silent glass tower he called his second home, he felt something crack open inside him as he stared at that letter. Outside, the city glittered with holiday lights, but inside his office sat a man who had everything money could buy, except the one thing he had quietly buried his longing for: family. He'd come in for one more late night, just one more deal, one more distraction from the emptiness echoing through every corner of his life. And instead, he found this letter, addressed to Santa, mistakenly delivered to the corporate charity mailroom and set on his desk by an assistant who thought it was meant for him. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that show how a single moment can change everything, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps bring more stories like this to life. What stopped Adam wasn't just the words, but the drawing beneath them: 3 stick figures, 2 children holding hands with a blank space where a father should have been. A little girl had drawn herself, her baby brother, and a gap that represented a missing piece of her world. Adam hadn't realized he was holding his breath until he slowly exhaled, the air trembling from a place deep inside him. He had been alone for a long time, long enough that the silence felt permanent, until a child somewhere out there wished for the one thing he had never dared to wish for himself. The letter came from a small town a few hours away, one the company had recently donated to after a storm destroyed several homes. Adam's company handled thousands of letters every year during Christmas charity drives, but none had ever reached him personally. He wondered why this one did. A mistake? A coincidence? Or something that was quietly choosing him? Despite the logic-driven part of his brain insisting it was irrelevant, another part, one he hadn't listened to in years, felt pulled toward that little girl's story. Her name, written carefully at the bottom, was Lily Carter. She lived with her mother and baby brother in one of the families the storm had displaced. They had lost their home, their car, and almost all their belongings. The father, as Adam later learned while searching through the charity reports, had passed away 2 years earlier in an accident while working night shifts to support them. The mother, Emily Carter, was piecing together a new life alone, working double shifts at a diner while caring for an infant and a grieving child who refused to talk about Christmas anymore. Something tightened inside Adam. He had been raised in an orphanage after losing both parents young. Holidays had always been the hardest. He remembered staring at families through frosted windows, promising himself that one day, the pain of longing would stop. He had kept that promise by burying his heart beneath the weight of endless success. But Lily's letter pulled that buried heart back to the surface, beating stronger than he expected. He told himself he would go visit them to deliver gifts on behalf of the charity. That was all. Just a good deed, nothing more personal than that. But deep down, he already sensed that this journey was going to change him. Adam arrived in Lily's town a week before Christmas. Snow blanketed the roads, kids played in the distance, and small houses glowed with warm yellow lights. When he reached the hotel the charity had arranged for displaced families, he found Emily working quietly in the lobby, folding laundry for the staff to earn extra money. Her tired eyes lifted toward him, guarded yet kind, and he introduced himself simply as someone from the charity who wanted to check in on her family. She looked surprised. Big corporate bosses didn't usually visit personally, but she didn't question it. She just nodded gratefully and led him to the small temporary room where Lily was drawing pictures on the floor while her baby brother napped. The sight caught him off guard. Lily looked so fragile, so hopeful despite everything. She immediately smiled when she saw the gifts he brought, but when he gently asked about her letter to Santa, her eyes softened in a way that nearly shattered him. She explained that she didn't want toys this year. Toys were things they could live without. But a dad. A dad was something only Santa could bring. She said the words as if they were simple, but Adam felt each syllable strike a place in him he thought was numb. He stayed longer than intended. He found himself visiting again the next day, and the next after that. Each time, he came under the guise of charity, but each time, he left feeling something grow inside him, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel before: connection. Emily, strong and gentle despite her exhaustion, surprised him too. She carried a quiet resilience in her that made him notice her strength long before he noticed her beauty. She was wary at first, unsure why a billionaire would care about her family, but gradually she began to open up. She talked about their struggles, her fears, her determination to keep her kids safe. She spoke without bitterness, even though life had given her every reason to surrender. Adam admired her more each day. He admired the way she comforted Lily's nightmares, the way she smiled at her baby boy even when she was tired, the way her voice softened when she said her late husband's name. She had loved deeply before, and that love had shaped her strength. Adam wondered if he could ever earn a place in that world of hers, a world built on devotion and loss and courage. But the more he visited, the more he feared he was crossing a line. He told himself he was only helping temporarily. He reminded himself that he wasn't father material, not after years of loneliness and emotional distance. And yet, Lily began to wait by the window for him every afternoon. Emily began to smile the moment she saw him. Even the baby laughed whenever Adam gently lifted him into the air. They were pulling him into a life he didn't think he deserved. On Christmas Eve, Adam walked through falling snow toward the small community center where families gathered for the holiday charity dinner. He carried gifts for Lily and her brother, but he also carried something heavier, a decision. He knew he had to tell them he wouldn't be visiting anymore. It wasn't fair to blur lines or give Lily false hope. But when he entered the center, Lily ran straight into his arms. She hugged him so tightly it startled him. She whispered that she didn't ask Santa for anything else because she believed her letter had already reached the right person. Adam couldn't breathe. Emily watched from across the room, seeing the conflict on his face. She approached, her voice soft, telling him he didn't have to be anything he wasn't. She said she was grateful for everything he had done, but she didn't expect anything more. Her kindness, the freedom she gave him instead of expectation, broke something open inside him completely. In that moment, he realized his fear wasn't that he wasn't good enough to be part of their lives. His fear was that he wanted it too much. Even then, he almost walked away. But as he turned toward the exit, he saw Lily holding her baby brother's hand, looking up at the glowing Christmas tree with a silent wish in her eyes. The same wish she wrote in her letter. A wish for a father, but also for family, for love, for someone who wouldn't leave. Adam felt his chest tighten until he finally understood. He wasn't meant to walk away from this. Not this time. He walked back to them with slow steps, uncertain yet determined. Emily looked up, startled. Lily's face brightened with that fragile light only children carry, the kind that can heal wounds adults pretend aren't there. Adam knelt beside them, feeling the weight of his emotions steady into something real. He didn't promise anything he couldn't keep. He simply asked if he could try to be part of their lives, try to show up, try to care in all the ways he was learning how to. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Lily nodded before her mother could even speak. And for the first time in years, Adam felt like he belonged somewhere. Over the next months, he helped rebuild their home, shared dinners with them, taught Lily how to ride her bike, held the baby when he cried, and found himself laughing more than he had in decades. He and Emily grew closer slowly, gently, building something rooted in trust rather than haste. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real, and real was all they needed. By the time the following Christmas arrived, Adam stood in their newly built home, watching Lily place a star on top of the tree. She didn't write a letter that year. She told her mother she didn't need to ask Santa for anything anymore. She already had what she wished for. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support more stories like this. Special request, before you go, comment below with the words, "Hope lives here."